Nobody in the NBA thought the day would come where the Los Angeles Lakers could look at a roster with LeBron James on it and realize, calmly, that for the first time since 2018, they are not the ones begging for answers. They are the ones holding the leverage. Welcome back to Lakers News Fan Report. I'm here with you to bring every fresh update and every real rumor about our beloved purple and gold directly, honestly, and with the respect this fanbase deserves. And tonight we need to dive into a conversation that a lot of people still whisper, but executives, agents, and insiders are already treating with total seriousness. What happens when the Lakers finally stop living in emergency mode around one aging superstar and start acting like a franchise built around the next decade? While the outside world is refreshing social media every hour for the next step in LeBron's recovery, inside basketball circles, the bigger picture is clear. LeBron picked up his $52.6 million option for this season. He is going through a careful progression from sciatica before beginning a record 23rd year, and at the exact same time, this team has opened the campaign winning, defending, and playing free with Luka Doncic running the show and Austin Reeves exploding into the kind of star you can actually trust as an offensive engine. That changes everything. The Lakers are not hanging by a thread anymore. They are not crossing their fingers for one man to save them every night. They are watching Luka put up MVP-caliber numbers, Reeves stack big-time lines, DeAndre Ayton give functional size and activity, Marcus Smart, Rui Hachimura, and the rest of the rotation doing their jobs. And they are realizing that the project sold to the league is real. A new core, a new hierarchy, the same historic jersey, but no longer chained to the idea that if LeBron is not carrying you for 35 minutes, your season is over. When performance, age, and contract collide like this, a responsible front office is forced to ask questions that go beyond emotion. LeBron is about to turn 41. His deal effectively runs through this season. Even people close to his camp publicly admit that his long-term plans are still up in the air, that he's leaving doors open. At the same time, other teams have quietly checked in, aware that 1 year of LeBron's presence, on the court, in the locker room, at the box office, still has enormous value. If you're the Lakers, and you just spent a fortune and years of planning to bring in Luka Doncic as your foundational star, you simply cannot pretend this is only a sentimental issue. This is an asset question, a timeline question, a legacy question. Are you going to risk losing one of the most valuable names in the sport for nothing in July? Or are you at least willing to understand what his name could bring back while he still commands a massive return? That is where the conversation starts to evolve from simple rumor into strategic reality. Notice the shift in the national conversation in the last weeks. More and more analysts saying the Lakers don't have to shape their every move around LeBron anymore, that the baton on the court has clearly moved to Luka, that Reeves is no longer a nice story, but a pillar, that this organization cannot keep repeating the same mistake of mortgaging tomorrow to appease yesterday's version of a superstar. None of that is disrespect. It's an honest reading of where the league is and what this roster is becoming. And it is exactly in that space where the most sensitive idea enters the room. If there is a contender out there willing to pay a historic price, should the Lakers be ready to sell, to trade LeBron James? Before we say that out loud in full, we need to understand why teams are secretly circling. Even at 40, even coming off a cautious injury timetable, LeBron is still LeBron. Put him into a ready-made situation, and he is instantly one of the smartest half-court organizers in the league, a mismatch creator, a playoff problem, a culture elevator, a global brand that explodes revenue and attention. For a contender one step short, one season of LeBron at a high level is worth aggressive offers, especially with a contract that does not lock them into 3 or 4 extra years. For the Lakers, those same facts flip the logic. An expiring number that massive is dangerous if you get nothing at the end. A body with 2 decades of mileage and a nerve issue means you cannot project blindly into the future. A new offensive center of gravity in Doncic means your system, your spacing, your usage patterns have already shifted. If you ignore all of that, you're not loyal, you're negligent. That is why smart people around this franchise believe you at least have to know your options. But knowing your options does not mean panicking, and it definitely does not mean giving away a legend. If the Lakers ever even entertain a move, it has to be at their price, on their terms, in a way that makes Luka's era bulletproof. That price starts with multiple first-round picks, not protected fluff, real young rotation players on controllable deals, and ideally a defensive centerpiece or two-way wing who steps straight into J.J. Redick's structure. Pace, communication, versatility, and protection for Doncic and Reeves. Anything less than that, you end the call. Because here's the key difference compared to past eras. For the first time in a long time, the Lakers can afford to say no. They have a functioning offense that doesn't rely on one man dribbling the air out of the ball. They've seen Reeves close games and handle star-level responsibility. They've seen Luka dominate late possessions like the superstar he is. They've seen role players executing roles that actually make sense. Keeping LeBron for the entire season as a high-end complementary piece is not a burden, it's a luxury. And that is exactly why the phrase, LeBron could be sold, is starting to appear in serious discussions. Because rival executives see what we see. If Los Angeles already has its next alpha, if they are already winning without him logging a single regular season minute, then the one piece that does not share that same timeline is the greatest player of his generation on an expiring deal. That's when emotion and logic crash into each other. Emotion says, this is the man who brought a title in 2020, who gave relevance back to the franchise, who carried bad rosters, who chose the Lakers when they were unstable. Logic says, the same organization has been burned when it waited too long, when it treated names like monuments instead of assets, when it ignored the cap, the age curve, and the new economic reality of the league. This time, there is a chance to be ahead of the curve instead of reacting to it. There is also a human layer people inside the league keep mentioning, the ending. Too many legends stayed in situations that didn't match their reality anymore and watched their final years turn into slow-motion discomfort. Considering a trade now can also be seen as protecting LeBron from that fate, either by placing him in a perfectly built contender for one last great run, or by defining a role in Los Angeles that is honest about minutes, touches, and expectations. If the fit works with Luka, if he accepts being the second or third option, if his body responds, keeping him is easy. You chase one more banner with 3 elite playmakers and a deeper roster than he's had in years. If the fit stalls, if the pace drops, if the spacing tightens, if the conversations around his future become louder than the games, then everyone already knows there are teams willing to push serious assets in for that final chapter. That is where selling stops looking like exile and starts looking like a carefully coordinated choice. From a cap standpoint, the logic is brutal and simple. In this new CBA environment, with harsh penalties for heavy spenders, you cannot tie more than $50 million to a piece that doesn't sync with your cornerstone's timeline unless he is absolutely essential to winning at the highest level. Every dollar committed to LeBron beyond this window is a dollar that cannot go into building out the perfect ecosystem around Luka. Long, switchable wings, a vertical rim presence that scares people at the cup, reliable shooting, and backcourt defenders who take the toughest matchups so your star's legs are there in May. If LeBron amplifies that environment, his cost is justified. If not, then turning that slot into a package of younger legs and future picks is not cold-hearted. It's how contenders stay contenders. For the locker room, the message is just as powerful. Handle this right, and Luka sees an organization fully invested in his era, not half in, half out. Reeves sees that his growth is recognized, not treated as trade bait for every rumor. Role players see a clear hierarchy and stability instead of constant noise.
Coaches get to design schemes around clarity instead of guessing which version of the roster they'll be coaching in 3 months. Whether LeBron stays or goes, the way the Lakers manage this situation is going to tell everyone what kind of project this really is, a tribute tour strapped to the past or a serious blueprint for the future. And before I hit the core verdict, I want your voice inside this. If you were sitting in that meeting with Rob Pelinka and J.J. Redick, staring at Luka's prime, Reeves' leap, LeBron's age, contract, and health file, would you authorize real trade talks if a contender offered multiple unprotected picks plus real young rotation players, or would you ride this partnership to the last page no matter what, out of respect for everything he has done in purple and gold? Drop your honest view below, because I want to feel how this fan base really reads this moment, not just the TV narrative. Here's my clear reading for you. The idea that LeBron James could be traded, that he could be sold by the Lakers, is no longer just noise or disrespectful fantasy. It is a serious strategic option that only exists because the Lakers are finally strong enough to consider it from a position of power. Path 1 is simple and beautiful. LeBron comes back, accepts a more tailored role, stays efficient, and the trio of Luka, Reeves, and LeBron pushes for another title. And if he chooses to leave in free agency afterward, you at least gave this core a real shot without blinking. Path 2 is colder but potentially brilliant. A contender comes in with that massive, undeniable offer. Picks, young pieces, defensive size. LeBron signs off on the destination, and the Lakers transform one expiring contract into the backbone of a decade around Doncic. In both paths, the franchise is driving, not reacting. That's the real headline. And that's why I'm asking you, not as casual spectators, but as people who live this team every night, when you hear that possibility, do you feel fear that the era might end, or curiosity about how high this organization is willing to aim to secure a true dynasty around Luka? Do you trust the current front office enough to believe they will only move if the return is colossal, or are you convinced LeBron's story in Los Angeles should end in the same jersey regardless of the spreadsheet? Be honest in the comments, because your pulse matters more than any outsider hot take. And remember, none of this means the Lakers are secretly collapsing or that a trade is inevitable. It means, for once, they hold multiple winning cards at the same time. It also means the rest of the league is finally a little bit afraid of how many directions the Lakers can go. Think about it from a rival GM seat. If Los Angeles keeps LeBron and he finds the right gear next to Luka, you're staring at 3 elite decision-makers in one lineup, with shooters and sides around them. If they trade him for a legitimate haul, you're staring at a younger, longer, deeper version of a team already proving it can win without him. There is no easy outcome for opponents here, and that is new. For years, the formula was simple. Wear LeBron down, live with the bad shooting nights around him, trust the Lakers to run out of answers. Now the questions are on the other side. How do you guard Doncic with a real role threat and multiple creators? How do you attack a roster that might flip one aging star into 3 productive pieces without losing its identity? How do you game plan for an organization that is finally willing to think with its head and not just its nostalgia? That's the quiet power shift hidden under this rumor, and it's why serious reporters keep coming back to this topic, not because someone in Los Angeles is desperate, but because for the first time in a decade, this franchise can negotiate with anyone about anything from a place of strength. So when you see the headline floating around that LeBron James will be sold, read it with context. Nobody has pulled the trigger, nobody inside the facility is leaking panic. What exists is a front office finally allowed to test hypotheticals without being held hostage by one name, a coaching staff building habits that do not depend on a single aging body, and a superstar in Luka who has already shown he can carry the responsibility that used to crush this organization when it was misplaced. The rumor is a mirror of respect for both sides. It exists because LeBron is still valuable enough to bring back something huge, and because the Lakers are finally organized enough that they could survive and maybe thrive if they ever chose that path. Until there's a real offer on the table and a real decision to evaluate, the smart stance is patience and clarity. My concise conclusion for you is this. The possibility of LeBron James being traded is real enough to be on the whiteboard, but it is not a tragedy waiting to happen. It is one of several strong levers available to a franchise that finally has structure, star power, and choice. If the right monster package appears, moving him could be a visionary decision that secures Luka's window and respects LeBron's legacy with a controlled, chosen ending. If it doesn't, the wise move is to keep him, manage his body, integrate him as a high IQ complementary force, and let him decide his last chapter in the summer. Now, tell me below what kind of return you would demand before even considering saying yes, and whether you see this as visionary or unforgivable. And make sure you stay with us, subscribe, and keep your notifications on, because here on Lakers News Fan Report, I'll be right here with you, delivering fast updates and deep, straightforward analysis on every rumor and every move that shapes the future of our Lakers. Always talking with you, not at you.